Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our situ mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Shopify's point of sale system helps you sell at every stage of your business. Need a fast and secure way to take payments in person? We've got you covered. How about card readers you can rely on anywhere you sell?
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yep, that too. Want one place to manage all your online and in-person sales? That's kind of our thing. Wherever you sell, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen. Shopify.com/listen.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. So here's a nightmare scenario. You get diagnosed with something called ductal carcinoma in situ. Latin, anyone? You're told it's technically sort of cancer, but not really. But we still need to slice you open, burn the crap out of you, and maybe nuke your hormones for about 5 years. Oh, and every doctor has a different story. Welcome to DCIS, where nuance goes to die and treatment plans are written in Sharpie. My guest today is Julia Stalder, lawyer, mediator, cancer patient, nonprofit founder, and general slayer of ambiguity. She got diagnosed with the so-called best kind of breast cancer, which is kind of like saying, I guess, you got hit by the nicest kind of bus. So instead of going scorched earth, she did her research, called Dr. Dad, which she was very lucky to have, and decided to do the one thing healthcare hates: wait. She's here to talk about what happens when medicine can't make up its mind, how it feels to start a nonprofit organization in the middle of your own diagnosis, and why cutting off body parts just in case may not be the revolution it sounds like. We got real, we cursed a lot, and yes, we even ranked which body parts you can live without and still get cancer. My name is Matthew Zachary. This is Out of Patience, and let's get started. Hi.
Hi.
Listeners, we had a bit of a tech issue prior to the show, but you know what? After 2,000 some odd episodes, it's bound to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm thrilled to meet you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We've been circling for quite a while, and I think it just took a mutual friend to introduce us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're fascinating in general.
Thank you.
But I just having a lawyer patient advocate is terrifying and awesome at the same time. You don't get a lot of those.
Right.
Like there were a lot of people, I got sick and became a doctor. No one gets sick and becomes a lawyer. You're a lawyer and then you happen to have shit happen to you.
Right.
Yeah. I need to just start with that.
Sure.
Like how did the best part of you being a lawyer come into play when shit happened?
Well, what's funny is that I am a lawyer by training, but I only really practiced for a couple of years before I moved into the nonprofit sector. And
no, but the mad skills are there.
They
never
know,
really go away.
But I actually, for the last 10 years, I have been running a mediation practice. So I'm a lawyer, but I've never had a litigious mindset. So, I mean, what I do now, my day job really is actually mediation, which is helping people resolve disputes without going to court and not fighting it out. So while I know you probably want me to say, oh, well, I came at this with a very litigious mindset and I'm going to make this happen.
You can curse here.
I actually...
I know you've listened to the show.
I know. Okay. All right. I can curse. But yes, the lawyer is still in me, and that always will be. It sort of gets beaten into you in law school. But I do think I actually come to this work with a broader mindset of more sort of understanding that there are multiple sides to every story. And I think that's actually very helpful when you're working in patient advocacy.
No, I didn't mean like from a litigious perspective, like just being Maybe litigious, legally litigious. Like you could be proactive. You know how to win an argument. You can make the case.
Absolutely.
You have a perspective.
Absolutely. And I do have all those things.
You can negotiate the shit out of anything.
And it's coming, yes, and it actually is very helpful. It's sort of embedded in me, so I don't even really think about it. But yes, it is certainly skills that are helping me right now.
Because I've had nurses on the show who got sick after they were nurses and like, oh, I was my own worst enemy because I overthought this.
Right.
So how is that? It's just fascinating because like sometimes you can and you can't negotiate with fuckery in healthcare. And as a patient advocate, what does that really mean?
Yeah. Well, I think knowing that, I don't even think about it as negotiating, but just not being afraid to drill down on doctors and asking questions and not being intimidated and feeling like the first answer I get is the answer. So I definitely think that the lawyer skills have helped in that respect.
So my first introduction to what I would consider the suffering index of I have cancer was I first learned the words dysplasia.
Okay.
In cervical cancer. This was 20 years ago. Like, why would I know what that was? But I stepped into this cancer world and I'm meeting other people that were not brain cancer. By the way, there's no good brain cancer. They're all kind of the same terrible. But like, you only had dysplasia?
Right.
Like, and then there was like this war of like, I had this and the breast cancer. My God, like the DCIS, the in situ, we're going to talk about that.
Right.
Like, why is it so terrible? It's a good thing if you didn't have stage 4.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with DCIS is that it's not stage 4 breast cancer. It's not even close. I mean, there's many people that don't even call it cancer to begin with. So it's still not a great diagnosis to get, which I can go into why, because essentially it is treated as low-grade invasive breast cancer. And that's sort of the problem with DCIS. But in terms of, a diagnosis, it's not a very scary thing to get in and of itself. What makes it scary is the treatment that is typically recommended, and that's standard of care. And I can get into that in a little more detail.
Well, the whole point is that I remember when I wrote the Stupid Cancer Manifesto. That's a bad, you can't say manifesto anymore.
Right.
All right, folks, we're going back to 2007. It's okay. Manifesto.
You can say it in front of me.
It's woke
okay.
over. I don't know what's going on. So it was the, that there are no good cancers. There are just less shitty cancers.
Right. Yeah, for sure. There are no good cancers, of course not. But there are definitely less shitty cancers. And I think also now our understanding of what, I'm using air quotes here, cancer is.
Air quotes on the radio.
Yes,
Fantastic.
but I like to tell people I'm using air quotes. Our definition of what cancer is has changed dramatically over the decades. It used to be that all cancer was something that was aggressive and was going to spread and kill. And now we know that that is just not the case, that there's a lot of cancers that are really slow growing and could never actually cause harm to a patient. And that's certainly the case with DCIS.
Yeah, because I was reading I did my spelunking. You've been very prolific online about this, and you're very obviously over because this is what you're doing in the nonprofit space. But, it's interesting. The best kind of breast cancer, right?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what you're told when you get a DCIS diagnosis.
Right.
It's sort of, I don't know, at least in my case, that's what I was told. And I think a lot of women are told it's the best kind of, it is something you need to deal with. And some doctors call it cancer. Some doctors call it a precancer. Doctors call it a risk factor for cancer. I mean, everybody kind of gets told something different, which is part of the bigger problem here with communication around DCIS. But, you're told that you have something you have to deal with, but it is the best kind. If you're going to get breast cancer, this is the best one to get.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been on the receiving end of you only had this because I had it 30 years ago and there was nothing back then to even compete against. Just like you had it, you died. Good luck.
Right.
Where have you fallen into this? Because, you can't just jump into the cancer world and not face a lot of this weirdness and this transference and have to have empathy for communities, right?
Right. I mean, well, no, I mean, I did fall into it. I got the diagnosis.
I mean, you didn't want to, you weren't like instant powdered nonprofit person on day one.
No.
Right.
No, of course not. No, I had to go through my journey and basically, which I can get into.
Well, we want to get into that, of course. Otherwise, why are you here? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We can do John Hughes the whole show if you want.
Well, I know you hear about a lot of journeys, so I don't want to be boring.
That's fine.
So, I mean, I was diagnosed, it was in February of 2024. And I got my DCIS diagnosis sort of the same way that many women get it, which is I had a routine mammogram screening.
As you're supposed to.
As you're supposed to, and as I always have since I turned 40. And calcifications were found, which then led to additional screening, biopsy, and this diagnosis. You have ductal carcinoma in situ. I had never heard of it. I had certainly had friends with invasive breast cancer, many of whom had, highly aggressive treatments.
Did you just speak Latin?
What's that?
Did you speak Latin?
No, I did not speak Latin.
It's a lesson in Latin, too. Why is it Latin?
I know.
Speak English,
Just
people.
Speak English.
Yeah.
So in any case, I got this diagnosis and I went down the rabbit hole of what is this, doing my research. I'm actually really fortunate because my father is a retired physician. And he is very up to date on all the latest research and, stays very sort of up to date on all the latest in medicine. And he told me from the get-go, this is something where you might want to get a second opinion. It's not, there is a standard of care. Here's what it is. Surgery, surgery, mastectomy or lumpectomy. Oftentimes with a lumpectomy, you get radiation. And then if your DCIS is hormone positive, which mine is, 5 years of hormone therapy, he said, this is what the standard of care is. But this is really an area where there's like a lot happening in terms of research. And, your recommendations could vary depending on what doctor you go to. So I'd think about getting, multiple opinions. So I knew from the get-go that this wasn't a straightforward thing, and then proceeded to go down that route of, doing my own research and then meeting with multiple doctors. And it was crazy because, first of all, when I went to do my own research, I went online, as we all do. You get this diagnosis.
Wait, pro or con at this point now? You're in the moment, recommendations, should people do that?
Oh, should people research their own?
What's the lesson here?
I think the lesson is you should if there are reliable sources to go to. And unfortunately with DCIS, there really weren't. And so, there are incredible breast cancer resources out there. There's these incredible foundations that do wonderful work. So, I went there. I went to those websites and there's like a page about DCIS, it exists, it's acknowledged. And of course it's acknowledged because it's 25% of all breast cancer diagnoses. So it's a part of the conversation. But there wasn't any information about the latest research. There wasn't any information about sort of the nuance and nothing really asking the hard questions about DCIS. So I just couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe in this day and age, with all the breast cancer resources out there, that there wasn't more information for patients. And so that was, sort of the beginning of me feeling like, maybe I have to create this. But in any case, before I get there, just sort of circling back to my own journey, I ended up meeting with 3 different breast surgeons, and they were.
Were you here in the city? Where were you?
So I live in Cold Spring, New York.
Okay.
It's in the Hudson Valley.
Right.
And so I'm 50 miles north of the city. So I met with somebody up near me, just outside of Cold Spring, somebody in Westchester, and then somebody down here in the city. So and all the surgeons I met with were top tier, excellent doctors. But it was crazy because they all explained DCIS differently. And they all had, a different perspective in terms of how I should deal with mine, which was just blew my mind. How can there be such difference in opinion on the same diagnosis? So ultimately, I ended up deciding to be treated by a doctor who is here. He's in the Bronx at Montefiore. And he basically told me that my 2 reasonable options were either I could have a mastectomy. This is based on sort of the clinical presentation of my DCIS and my own anatomy. And that's basically the surgical recommendation. Or he said I could be a candidate for something called active surveillance, which is basically...
Is that a new idea, or is that something that's alternative to standard?
Well, so it is not a new idea in the prostate cancer field. You've probably heard about it. There's, for a really long time, it has been used as a way to manage certain slow-growing prostate cancers. I think it's actually used for like 30% of prostate cancer. I mean, most of us know a man who is watching their prostate cancer. It's pretty common.
Yeah.
And it's been used very successfully. So
I just found my prostate. I turned 51 and it showed up. So I'm going to start watching it at some point soon, too.
Everyone should always be monitoring their prostate. But in any case, so active surveillance does exist in that capacity, and it is not at all standard of care for DCIS. However, there have been clinical trials going on that have been monitoring women, particularly with low-risk DCIS, which is a sort of subset type of DCIS, and it is the type that I have. And I can get into more detail, but just sort of suffice it to say that the clinical trials have been showing that women who monitor their low-risk DCIS, at least in the short term, have no higher risk of developing invasive breast cancer than women who are following the standard of care and having surgery right away.
So I can't help but want to go back to the fact that your dad happens to be a physician.
Yeah.
Comes in very handy.
So handy.
Good karma right there. Not everyone has that. Was his reaction more doctor than dad, or what was the combo?
It was a combo. But at the end of the day, he does look at the science, and he is a doctor, and he read up on these studies. He actually got me the name of the doctor that I am now being treated by. And he said to me, listen, like, if your doctor, and my doctor, by the way, is a principal investigator in the US-based clinical trial that is doing active surveillance for low-risk DCIS. But basically, what my dad said was, listen, if your doctor is comfortable with you doing this as your treatment, then I'm comfortable with it. So I think it always kind of boils down to, do you trust the doctor that's taking care of your child?
We can have a whole other podcast about being raised by a doctor. Dr. Dad.
Yeah.
Totally. That's a whole other show?
A whole other show. It's so much to say. But honestly, I mean, I am so grateful. And beyond just being able to bounce everything off of him, I feel like just growing up in a house with a doctor has made me, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, feel very comfortable questioning and asking questions of doctors, and not necessarily taking everything they say as God's word. Doctors are people, and doctors have different opinions. Doctors have varying knowledge of latest research, and it's okay to push. And that's something that having a doctor father has allowed me to do.
It's always been a fairly cantankerous conversation over the years to blame doctors for everything, that they are human.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, I'd like to believe 99.9% of the time they are trying to practice Hippocrates.
Yeah.
And it usually is in their best interest. Yeah. And it usually is in their best interest to practice Hippocrates, as they are sworn to do.
Yeah.
And it's almost too easy to just find scapegoats in transference because you're trying to not die from something.
Right. No, of course. And with DCIS in particular, it's really tricky because doctors, certainly the 3 doctors that I went and consulted with, they don't want you to die. They don't want women to die of breast cancer. They are looking out for, what they believe is your best interest. It's coming from a good place. I think there's also doctors I'm just going to say it. Of course, there's liability concerns. Doctors, don't want to, have that as an issue. I think also a lot of doctors, particularly with DCIS, where there's so much uncertainty about the diagnosis and the natural progression of the condition, I think a lot of doctors feel like they're uncomfortable with the uncertainty, and sort of it's hard to have a conversation with a patient where you're telling them that there's gaps in the evidence. And, where I'm coming from, I just feel like doctors underestimate patients a lot of time, and that, I think it would be really terrific if there were more of these sort of deep conversations about, what is really going on in the field, and sort of being honest with patients about the fact that there are things, particularly with DCIS, that we just don't know the answer.
Yeah, well said. And again, I think it's just another interesting sort of storytelling opportunity to be raised by a physician and then become a cancer patient at the same time.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, let's take a really quick break, and we'll be right back with Julia Stalder. All right, we have to get to the meat and potatoes here, which is I've always been on the, I guess I'm able to lay claim to have maybe some pedigree on why a fucking charity? The nonprofit therapy in me never goes away.
Yeah.
And having started one, not knowing what the hell it was, not understanding what I was getting myself into. Yes, it was a different time. It was pre-internet. There was less complicated mechanics and infrastructure around it, but still, I didn't know I wanted to have a baby.
Right.
Without having children. I was just married. We weren't planning on having kids. And all of a sudden, hey, Jess, I got a charity now. Oh, great.
Yeah.
See you in 30 years. And you're fresh-faced into this by comparison. I was like a decade out of my diagnosis. Like, should I really do this?
Right.
You jumped right in. Let's talk about that.
Right. Well, I jumped right in because the need is real and it is now. And the need for more research in particular is urgent because women are having very aggressive treatments for a non-invasive condition that in most cases is not likely to develop into invasive breast cancer. So, unlike in the prostate cancer field, and sorry, I know you're a man, so I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but
you have just wadeered me correctly.
When you're talking about erectile dysfunction and impotence, there was an incentive to figure that shit out. But when you're talking about cutting off women's breasts, there hasn't historically been as much oomph behind doing something about that.
Right.
But that is essentially what's happening. And I do want to qualify everything by saying there are many cases of DCIS that do warrant aggressive treatment. DCIS is really heterogeneous, so women with higher risk absolutely should be getting the aggressive treatments that they are. However, because the standard of care is just the standard of care and it really doesn't account for higher and lower risk DCIS, what's happening is that there are a lot of women that are being overtreated. And this is happening so quickly,
let's get into that. Overtreatment.
Yeah. So overtreatment. So basically, there are 60,000 women being diagnosed, around 60,000 women being diagnosed with DCIS just in the U.S. each year. It accounts for like 20 to 25% of all breast cancer diagnoses. So we're talking about a huge number of women, and men, by the way, can get DCIS, though it's far less common. And it's important in sort of understanding this epidemic, really, of DCIS is kind of looking at the history and seeing that before mammograms, DCIS accounted for like 3% of screen-detected breast cancer diagnoses. So it wasn't really a thing.
Right.
Okay. Now we have mammograms, which are wonderful and have done so much for the early detection and treatment of breast cancer. But what has also come out of that is the detection of, this really, really early cancer, if you're in the boat that calls it that.
This is a good problem to have, by the way. Let's establish that.
Catching stuff early?
Yeah.
It is, unless your DCIS is not ever actually going to harm your life. Because then what ends up happening is that you're potentially getting a mastectomy or, a lumpectomy and radiation or doing hormone therapy, all of which have very, serious side effects and really can affect your quality of life for a condition that may never have turned into anything serious.
Unnecessary treatment.
Unnecessary treatment. And so, basically, it's estimated that up to 50 to 80% of DCIS would never actually turn into invasive breast cancer if it was left untreated. The problem is that scientists and doctors do not know which DCIS is going to turn into invasive breast cancer and which could just lie dormant for years or even decades and never actually turn invasive and threaten a woman's life. So we're in this situation where it just gets treated and the treatments are really aggressive because the science hasn't been able to figure out, which DCIS can we treat less aggressively or follow with active monitoring, which is, by the way, what I'm doing. I don't know if I was explicit about that.
Right. So the active monitoring is like the first potential way to avoid unnecessary surgery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And just to be clear, so I'm doing active monitoring. I'm doing it along with hormone therapy. So my DCIS is hormone positive. So I am able to treat it with hormone therapy. My doctor didn't require it, but Most of the women who are in the clinical trial, by the way, the name of the clinical trial, is it okay if I mention it? So it's abbreviated COMET. It stands for Comparing an Operation to Monitoring with or Without Endocrine Therapy. So that's
acronyms.
I know.
Jesus Christ,
COMET,
acronyms.
way easier. But that is the active surveillance clinical trial that's happening in the U.S. and the one that I'm basically following the protocol
Is
of.
this the first of its kind?
It is the first, as far as I know, it's the first randomized prospective clinical trial in the U.S. This has been going on in Europe for many years.
Okay.
Of course, there have been trials in Europe. Of course.
Yeah.
And I know there's also a similar trial happening in Japan, but in the U.S., this is a really big deal because it's the first of its kind here. And so the first results were made public last December, and as I said, basically came out and said that the women who were monitoring their lowest DCIS had no more likelihood of having invasive breast cancer in the affected breast as the women who were following standard of care. So basically, you are fine monitoring, at least in the short term. So this is the first 2 years of information,
So it's relatively new as well here in the States.
It is relatively new, but I will mention the trial started in 2017. So it's actually been going on for 8 years, but there's a lag between, you don't get trial results in real time, right? There's a lag. So we're seeing now the official, first 2 years results of it. However, it's been going on for, I guess, 8 years now. And if there were any serious safety concerns for the women who are in the active monitoring arm, the trial would have been stopped, and it hasn't been.
All right, I have a question. This, obviously, being a man with a Y chromosome, I'm not qualified to know the answer to this question. But from my perspective and my experience in blood cancer, for example, you have leukemia. Great, what's that? It's blood cancer. Oh, shit. The word cancer isn't in the diagnosis. When a woman is diagnosed with DCIS, do they say you have breast cancer but, or do they say you have DCIS but?
Honestly, it really depends on who you ask and who's giving you the diagnosis. Like there is such a wide discrepancy in terms of how doctors explain the diagnosis to women. Carcinoma is in the diagnosis name. So you hear that and you're made to think you have cancer. Also, you are being told that your treatment is basically the same treatments you would have if you had low-grade invasive breast cancer minus chemotherapy, but still surgery, radiation, and hormone therapy. So even if a doctor says ductal carcinoma in situ, but it's really a risk factor, precancer, not a real cancer, most women just assume that it is cancer, full stop, because that's what your treatment is. So how can you not be made to feel that it is cancer? I think the sort of information that's lost in those conversations is that doctors don't explain to women that just because something looks like cancer under the microscope, which is what DCIS does look like invasive cancer under a microscope in terms of like the pathology and molecularly. But just because something looks like cancer doesn't mean it's going to behave the same way as invasive breast cancer. And that's what researchers are trying to figure out right now with DCIS. What DCIS actually is so slow growing that women don't necessarily have to treat it aggressively, and which DCIS is very aggressive and should be treated, in the way it is. So there's that nuance, and that's not explained to patients when they get the diagnosis. And as a result, there's a lot of confusion. And
is that like a doctor speaking English thing to normal people, or like a translation from science and academia to lay speak? Or is it just like, we don't know yet how this should be spoken?
I think it's, we don't know yet how this should be spoken. I think it's acknowledging that, different doctors talk about it differently, and that there is disagreement in the medical community about how we should communicate about DCIS. And I think that's, as I was saying earlier, like I think just that sort of discomfort with ambiguity is something that a lot of doctors aren't comfortable with and aren't comfortable sharing with their patients.
So historical perspectives, as someone who's entering his 30th year cancer-free, I bring a perspective of we kind of all just used to die.
Right.
So I say better problems to have with a little tongue in cheek.
Right.
because it's a good thing, hear me out, to get diagnosed with this and accidentally get a mastectomy you don't need than to just kind of die from something 30 years ago. It's a less worse, terrible thing to happen. We'd rather it not happen, but I see that as progress from just kind of dying.
I hear you.
Put your ethicist lawyer hat on for a second and yell at me.
No, of course, that totally makes sense. But the thing that's really hard that I really want to hammer home is that most DCIS is not actually going to turn into invasive breast cancer. So you are treating something highly aggressively that, yes, it will reduce your risk overall. If you cut off your breasts, absolutely, it reduces your risk of having invasive breast cancer. However, there are so many side effects to it. It is a big deal to have these surgeries.
Yes,
so, you know, if you are more likely to die of something else, which is the case for a lot of women with DCIS and low risk DCIS in particular, then that's actually a problem. You know, I would say that's not a good thing. Like, by that logic, cut off all your limbs and you'll reduce your risk.
Oh my God, wait, we used to have, I have to interrupt. We used to have a conversation, a really dark cancer only, like only we can say this kind of stuff. How many things can you live without and still get cancer?
Right. Yes.
Who needs limbs, eyes, nose, ears, one lung, one kidney? You can kind of go without a stomach.
Right.
Uteruses can go. We know that, testicles. What can you possibly get rid of and still live? Maybe you're just a football that breathes.
Right.
But you could still get skin cancer.
Yeah.
So you lose any way you go.
It's a lot of things. For sure. For sure. But I mean, it really, I don't know, with DCIS, it really just boils down to, and my sort of biggest thing is we need to personalize the care. It needs to just, I mean, and this is the case for all cancer care, you know, but we just really, it needs to be individualized. And there are some doctors that, you know, wonderful doctors, including, you know, the doctors that I went to that do try to do that for patients, but we need more of it. And, you know, here I am in New York City, I'm going to the top tier doctors. This is not the case, you know, around the country. And
for sure.
And so that's something that's the message that I'm really trying to get at with what I'm doing and with the DCIS Understood movement. Just we need to really push for more individualized, patient-centered DCIS care. And that's the direction that I want this to move in.
All right. I have a practical question. How do you sleep? You're doing this, you have a law firm, and you have kids. Is this just like Supermom and we're done?
Honestly, it's been a really busy year. It's been a really busy year. I'm not going to lie. Yep. And I've got 2 kids. So I do sleep though, because if I don't sleep, then I can't get any of it done. So I actually really do prioritize that. But I sleep because, you know I need to take care of myself in order to do the work that I'm doing. And I love what I do. I mean, I actually love my day job and I love what I'm doing with this new nonprofit. So I'm highly motivated and just really trying to, prioritize my time as best as I can.
Well, asterisk as best as I can. It was a lead into self-care, right? Yeah. You still feel, I mean, again, I keep saying like you're kind of still new in the game. You're barely crossed like first base or second base like a year later or so. Are you living in a scanxiety-ish space? Are you comfortable where you feel your care is in this trial now, plus managing all these other obligations you're putting upon yourself to do good in the world?
Yeah, I do feel comfortable. I don't have scanxiety because I feel comfortable about my treatment path and the way I'm managing my DCIS. You know, I do get scans twice a year. So my particular surveillance schedule is alternating mammograms with MRIs every 6 months. So, you know, I get a mammogram, 6 months later, MRI, 6 months later, mammogram. And yeah, there's always a little bit of scanxiety, but the way my doctor explained it to me, you know, if there is signs of progression, then we would still be catching whatever there is early. And I would at that time have surgery and I can sleep well at night, sort of knowing that that's what will happen. So no, I don't have scanxiety. I am really trying to prioritize self-care because, you know, you get any kind of diagnosis, but certainly anything in the cancer space. And at least for me, like, I want to be living my healthiest life. And at this point, we all know that diet and exercise and having less stress and prioritizing sleep, that stuff all matters in terms of cancer prevention. Sure? Yes, it does. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to sit here and cite the studies because unfortunately they're not really out there, you know, right. Which a whole other podcast. But yes. But I know that stuff really matters. And so I've been doing that and I feel great. So, yes, I've been prioritizing self-care.
I'm glad that Cure Today found you, or you found them. It was a great story.
Thank you.
Was that your first published article?
Yeah,
about
certainly. In this,
how'd it feel?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It felt awesome. I couldn't believe it. I just kind of wrote it on a whim and just sent it off. And then they actually published it without even telling me in advance. They have no standards. It's fine. None.
I know everyone there.
But I went online and I was like, oh my God, not only is it published, it was the lead article. When you went to their website, it was the first article that came up. So I couldn't believe it. And it was sort of the kick in the ass to really get the word out there. So it was really great for spreading awareness.
So the organization is DCIS Understood. Is that the domain as well?
Yes.
So DCISunderstood.org.
Yep.
What can people expect when they get there?
So right now, there's a lot of educational information for women who are newly diagnosed. Basically, just here's the questions to ask your doctor. Here's how you understand your pathology report. Here's the treatment options. Here are some resources for support and for further research. It is a new organization. It's a relatively new website, and there's still a lot that we're doing to grow it. But there are certainly a lot of resources right there now, and I'm really just trying to get the word out so we can direct newly diagnosed patients to the website.
Well, you heard it here first. I'm thrilled to have you on the show, and now it's time for the lightning round, which you prepared for. Because you were now aware, so everyone listening by now knows that I do this Netflix Zeitgeist thing at the end of the show with AI. You knew I was going to do this, but you failed to research your own to see if my chat. You failed to research your own to see if my chat was better than yours. But I'm kind of prepared in advance because you're kind of Gen X and millennial.
I am. Yeah. I'm right on the cusp.
Yeah. So I did both this time.
Okay.
Gen X Pop Culture Soulmates and Millennial Pop Culture Soulmates for Netflix series. Okay. Which one do you want to hear first?
Oh, wait, what are the options?
All right, so for the listeners, if you're just chiming in, what I do is I ask my ChatGPT that if my guests were in a Netflix series, what 3 pop culture soulmates would they be from their respective generation on the screen? So in your case, you have to pick Gen X or Millennial.
Oh, okay. I would probably say Gen X.
All right. So you are Erin Brockovich, Murphy Brown, and June Osborne.
Okay, there you go.
So Handmaid's Tale, Murphy Brown, by the way, and why not Julia Roberts? You can't not be that person.
You cannot be. I mean, Erin Brockovich. I'm flattered.
Yes,
I'm really flattered by ChatGPT. It says
fierce, detail-oriented outsider turned force for justice, battling corporate medical inertia.
Nice.
Murphy Brown is smart, sharp, media savvy, mixing professionalism, motherhood, and fearless opinion.
Love it.
And June Osborne, of course, how you take control of your narrative, resist oppressive structures, and push back on institutions, telling her what should have to happen.
Perfect.
The Millennial.
Yeah, I got to hear the Millennial too.
All right. So you're Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Idealistic, relentless community builder who weaponizes spreadsheets and snacks to fix broken systems. You're Juno McGuff from Juno.
Oh.
Dry wit, accidental icon, which
cool.
I'm claiming you are.
Very cool.
Navigational chaos builder with brutal honesty, surprising tenderness, which I will agree. You're probably a great mom too.
Thank
Get
you.
your kids on the show one day. They'll verify.
They would love it.
And you're Katniss. Why not?
Oh.
From Hunger Games.
Katniss. Fierce.
Reluctant, fierce leader turned advocate, unwilling to play by the rigged rules, yet forced to master them.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, you can. By the way, and I give these away. You can keep these.
I do want to keep that.
I expect crocheted variants as a gift down the road. Here you go.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God, Julia Stalder, founder and CEO of DCIS Understood. It's a thrill to meet you. Thrilled to have you on the show. You're right. I have not done a show about this in all these years. This is really important, and I'm fascinated that they're finally realizing. If you don't have to have the bad stuff, let's watch and see to make sure you don't need the bad stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
All right, folks. We'll see you back here next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a production of Matthew Zachary Worldwide. The executive producer is Matthew Zachary. It is mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome wherever you get your podcasts. If you have guest suggestions or would like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, email podcast@matthewzachary.com. For more information about Matthew Zachary and Matthew Zachary Worldwide, visit matthewzachary.com.